So now I'd like to introduce our community partners over at Center of Excellence for Immigrant Child Health and Wellbeing, Aura Aparicio and Griselda Chavez at UCSF Benioff Children's Hospital, Oakland. Griselda is the Infant Development Specialist, Early Intervention Services, Neonatal Follow-Up Unit Special Start, and Aura is the Project Manager for the Cross Bay Center of Excellence for Immigrant Child Health and Wellbeing. I welcome you both today and like to turn it over to Aura, who will be introducing our presenters.
Thank you so much, Catherine. Good morning, buenos dias. My name is Aura Aparicio with the Center of Excellence for Immigrant Child Health and Wellbeing at UCSF Benioff Children's Hospitals. We are a cross-based center focused on the health and well-being of immigrant and refugee children and youth. Among our various initiatives, we coordinate and lead a pediatric asylum clinic, providing medical and psychological forensic exams to support children and youth petitioning for asylum. We are also training the next generation of providers, medical students, and medical residents on best practices and trauma-informed care of immigrant children, youth, and their families. In addition, we coordinate trainings for our community of providers within UCSF and the broader community. Thank you for your interest in this session. With so many changes and so much uncertainty in these times, we want to ensure that we're providing resources and support to those working with immigrant and refugee communities. We are grateful for all that you do. And we are grateful to be partnering once again with First Five Alameda County to offer this training. I'd like to introduce our presenters. Mark Johnson from the Alameda County Public Health Department, Kimia Pakdaman, Alameda County's Health's lead Medi-Cal strategist and CalAIM Coordinator, Carlos Alarcón, Health Policy Manager at the California Immigrant Policy Center, Monica Rosado, Health Insurance Technician with Alameda County Health Enrollment Assistance Program, Grecia Vidal Zavala, Behavioral Health Clinician in Pediatric Primary Care. I will put their extended bios in the QA, and so you can take a look at that. But I will go ahead and pass the baton over to Mark for introductions of his team. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Aura. Hello, everybody. My name is Mark Johnson. I'm with Alameda County Health. There's many of us here today with presentations from a work group that is focused on supporting setbacks as a result of federal policy changes in HR 1. We have a presentation from our lead Medi-Cal strategist, Kimia, and she's going to go over both current and upcoming Medi-Cal changes. And then presentations from our health insurance technician team that will help you understand the Medi-Cal applications enrollment and renewal process. We have a team of subject matter experts answering questions in the Q&A. If you have any questions, please put them in the Q&A and we'll answer them to the best of our ability. And I'm going to hand it over to Kimia.
Thanks, Mark, and good morning to everyone. Just confirming everyone can see my screen.
Not yet. There it goes.
Okay, great. All right, so as Mark and Aura well said, my name is Kimia Pakdaman. I'm a senior program specialist and our Medi-Cal strategist here in Alameda County Health, which is our county's health department. So I'll go over some policies today and some ways you can help your clients. So I'm sure many of you have heard about a lot of the policies that have been impacting our clients' Medi-Cal and CalFresh eligibility. And there's a lot of detail and it can be a little bit confusing sometimes, but I think if I leave you all with a couple things to walk away, these are the things that I would want you to remember. So the number one thing is we recommend helping your clients maintain their Medi-Cal and CalFresh as much as possible. And we know there's some uncertainty about these benefits at this point, but we believe it's best to keep them as much as policies allow. We also hope that you can help your clients keep their mailing address and phone numbers updated with the local social services agency and on Benefits Cal, since this is the main way that they are able to communicate with clients about upcoming deadlines or a need to upload documents, etc. Thirdly, it would be very helpful to make sure clients submit their documents on time, because these can impact their eligibility and their ability to keep the benefits. And to keep an eye on snail mail, since this is one of the main ways our social services agency communicates with Medi-Cal enrollees. And lastly, if there's any need for help or questions, there's always your client's social services, caseworker, even doctor's office or clinic's offices could help answer some questions about, especially about Medi-Cal. So the policy changes in general do not have to impact mixed status families specifically. Anyone who is qualified for Medi-Cal can continue to be qualified for Medi-Cal regardless of the status of other members in their household. And it won't impact the status of the other members of their household. Additionally, just as a general rule of thumb, these Medi-Cal policy changes do not apply to people who are pregnant or 12 months postpartum, people who are 18 years or younger, so children, those who qualified for Medi-Cal through a disability, or former foster youth who are currently under the age of 26 and who were in foster care at the age of 18. And then I know we're not talking about CalFresh today, but just in case you do get questions from your clients, the work requirement under CalFresh does not apply to adults with children who are 14 years old and younger, along with a few other, many other exemptions, but we won't get into CalFresh today since we're focusing on Medi-Cal. So here are all the policies that we're sort of grappling with, given the passage of HR1 and then some state policies, and then the start dates. Just a note here, you'll see work requirement mentioned here. I'm sure you've heard it in the news. The work requirement is not just work, it's also you can do community service, you can volunteer, you can be in school, but just for shorthand, we sometimes use work requirement. So before we jump into all the details of these policies, I want to make sure we're all on the same page about some important definitions in Medi-Cal. So you might hear the term full scope Medi-Cal at various points. This is what most people have when they have Medi-Cal, and many of the policies that we're considering that might impact our clients might result in people losing their full scope Medi-Cal. And your client will have full scope Medi-Cal if they have this benefits identification card, which is this like poppy flower card, and then a member card to a health insurance plan, which in Alameda County is going to be either Kaiser or Alliance. So if someone becomes ineligible for full scope Medi-Cal, they may become eligible for emergency Medi-Cal, and it's sometimes also called partial scope Medi-Cal. You might hear that. What is considered an emergency is often determined by the doctor who is treating the individual. And if someone has emergency Medi-Cal, they'll have the poppy card only, or this older version, the blue and white benefits identification card. So they will have those, but they will not have a member card to a health insurance plan. And then I've listed the 3 policies here that could result in someone losing their full scope Medi-Cal, but keeping emergency Medi-Cal. And I'll go into detail about those upcoming. And then I know many of you serve clients who are immigrants. And so the policy changes that took place at the middle of last year have updated this definition of what is a quote unquote unsatisfactory immigration status, or UIS. And it basically means an individual who is not a US citizen or US national, or don't fit into some very specific immigrant categories, such as being an asylee or a green card holder who's met the 5-year waiting period. So there's a list that the state DHCS has put together that I think you all can peruse at your own leisure. But many of the policies that you've been hearing about impact these people who have UIS. And I think the main thing here is if you're not sure, if your client's not sure if they fit into this category, calling the social services is the best way to check if that is the category that they're in. And then the last, overall definition, pregnancy and Medi-Cal. So it's important for us to restate that anyone who's pregnant or 12 months postpartum, regardless of the birth outcome, will not be impacted by the policies that we'll be discussing today, except for one policy that I will flag for you all. The income limit for people who are pregnant or postpartum is also higher than regular Medi-Cal, and so it's meant to be more flexible. And there are many services covered under Medi-Cal if someone is pregnant or postpartum. Okay, now on to the Medi-Cal policy changes that either have already taken place or are about to take place in this year. So in January, we had what we're calling the UIS enrollment freeze. And it's basically not allowing any new people who are above the age of 19 and who have this UIS to enroll in Medi-Cal. But if they had Medi-Cal before this date, they get to keep their Medi-Cal. And if they happen to miss their re-enrollment date, there's a 3-month grace period to get back onto full scope Medi-Cal. And after someone loses their full scope Medi-Cal because they did not re-enroll, they become eligible for emergency only Medi-Cal. And you can see there's some exemptions here as well to this policy. So the main takeaway here is stay UIS folks, anyone who might be in this category, 19 years old or older, should keep their Medi-Cal as much as possible and not miss their re-enrollment dates. The next policy that is coming up is in this summer, July 1st. For those who are 19 years and older and who have UIS, they will lose access to full scope dental services, excuse me. And from July 1 onwards, they will have access to only emergency dental services, such as services for serious tooth pain or extractions. So the call to action here is if your clients need dental work, or if they haven't gone to a cleaning recently, we suggest getting your services before July 1, since these sort of regular checkups are not going to be covered after July 1. And on the next slide, I'll show some resources that can help with that. So here are some clinics that accept Medi-Cal for dental services. And we'll share these slides after, so you can take a screenshot or you can wait for the slides later. So these will be great to access before July 1. And then after July 1, if your client needs services and they don't have full scope dental services covered anymore, here are some free or low cost dental clinics that they might be able to use. So moving on, this is the one policy change where there are no exemptions, even for individuals who are pregnant and postpartum. There was a change in the definition of what is considered a qualified non-citizen by the federal government. And so anyone who fits in one of these groups that I've listed on this slide here, such as refugees, asylees, victims of human trafficking, they will not be able to have full scope Medi-Cal starting October 1st of this year. And they'll still have access to emergency Medi-Cal, but not the full scope version. And unlike the UIS enrollment freeze, there's no pathway for this group to keep their full scope Medi-Cal. So our call to action here is to, if you think one of your clients is in this group, to really push to get their routine medical services completed before October 1st. After that point, going to free or low cost clinics will be the best option. So those are the policy changes for 2026 that we believe may impact your clients. I'm going to go over the 2027 and 2028 policy changes that we see coming, not in as much detail, because we hope we can come back and as it gets closer, give some more detail. But I'll do a brief overview. So all these policies go into effect at the beginning of next year, January 2027. And the first one is one we've been hearing a lot about, the work or education or volunteering requirement, also known as the work requirement. It applies to anyone who's between 19 and 64 years old who is not pregnant, but there are quite a few exemptions to this policy, to this policy. And so we think that that will be the most important thing for us to focus on to keep our clients on Medi-Cal via the exemptions. If your client doesn't end up being in one of the exemptions, to fulfill the work requirement, they'll need to be making at least $580 per month, or working, volunteering in an employment program at least 80 hours per month, or be in an education program for half time or more, or a combination of those. The next policy change in 2027 is a 6-month eligibility. So before this policy change, we get Medi-Cal for a year. And with this policy change, instead, it will be every 6 months, our clients will be requested to reapply to Medi-Cal, re-enroll, meaning that they'll just have more paperwork and applications than before. And this applies to 19 and 64-year-olds who are not pregnant, and there are some exemptions to this policy date. And the 6 months start for your client's first 2027 re-enrollment date. So that could be towards the beginning of the year or the end of the year. And then lastly, there's going to be reduced retroactive coverage starting in January 2027. So currently, and before this January 2027 date, is a possibility that you can get medical bills paid for 3 months prior to when your Medi-Cal started. But after this change, it'll be 1 or 2 months prior to your Medi-Cal started. And similar to the other policies, these apply to individuals who are 19 to 64. And then in July of next year, another policy change will go into effect, and this is premiums, meaning monthly payments for individuals who have UIS and who are between 19 and 64 years old. This will mean that they will have to pay $30 a month to keep their Medi-Cal in full scope Medi-Cal. And then the last policy change that we see coming down the pike is in October of 2028. And this is what they're calling co-payments, meaning for a certain group of individuals who are between 19 and 64, who are not pregnant and not on Medicare, and who are making more than $15,560 annually, they will have to pay a fee for certain services. We don't have a ton of information about this policy change just yet because it is so far in the future, but we are keeping our eye on the state and federal government for more information. So those are all the policy changes. They're disheartening, to say the least, and a little overwhelming. And I think that your work with your clients is incredibly important to keeping people on Medi-Cal and keeping them healthy. And we have projected what we think would happen with and without conducting outreach and enrollment support. And with outreach, we believe that we can help keep almost 100,000 people on Medi-Cal despite these policy changes. And so that's our big call to action today, is to work with your clients to try to keep on top of this changing landscape. The bar graphs just show that the solid bars show what would happen in the absence of active outreach and enrollment support. And the bar graph with the lines show what could happen if we do help people, which is mitigate the impacts. So before I pass it on to the next presenter, I want to let you all know that the county has passed certain policies to reduce and eliminate collaboration with ICE, Alameda County specifically. In January, the Board of Supervisors passed a policy to limit our collaboration with ICE, and in total, it does not allow the county to work with ICE in the public locations that are owned by the county. And we're hoping it reduces fear in coming into the county offices for appointments or applying to services. And it applies to both somewhat public areas of the county and buildings and non-public areas. So this is the details of the policy. ICE can't use, there we go. ICE can't use county-owned or controlled property or buildings to set up bases for their work. When possible, we will create barriers like locked gates and doors to limit access, and this includes waiting rooms for our social services. We'll be posting clear signs at county buildings about ICE. And the county staff will report any attempts by the federal government to use county property for enforcement activities. And I know Carlos will talk a lot about advocacy in his presentation, but I want to put a plug in for an Alameda County specific committee that focuses on policymaking related to immigration and immigration enforcement. So we can put this information in the Q&A and also send it out after. But if you or your clients are interested in participating, this is a public meeting. Not going to go through all our resources. We have a ton. This is just a preview of the ones we have in our slides that we'll send around. But we're hoping that either by keeping people on Medi-Cal or providing alternatives that we can keep our clients in a safe spot. And that's all I had.
Kimia, thank you.
Thanks, Griselda.
Yeah, I just wanted to invite a moment right now. This was a lot of really important and a lot of great information you just gave us. We are certainly, we have a lot of wonderful experts here with us that if you happen to have a question related specifically to somebody you are working with, a family that you might be working with, you can use the chat and one of our experts can address your question. And I just want to invite also, if you happen to have a general question about some of the information Kimia has already provided here related to that, or if you have another question that was not answered through the presentation that Kimia just gave us, feel free to put it in the chat now. And I invite you also to go ahead and unmute yourself so that you can ask your question. And I wanted to just give this moment of pause here for this Q&A as we have a few other presenters, and we will also pause after our next presenter as well, because sometimes it takes just a minute for some of these questions to kind of formulate. So bear with us as we just sit for a second if anybody needs to come off mute to ask a question. And you can also use the Q&A to ask your question there.
I have a question. My name is
Sure.
Kimia Pakdaman, and I work with the East Bay Agency for Children. I work with a lot of asylum cases, pending asylum cases, who have work permits and Social Security as well. In the past, they've been able to get full scope Medi-Cal. And I think since January 1st, 2026, I think any new enrollees are getting limited or restricted Medi-Cal. And if they claim through call, so what I'm doing, like we used to do before, to submit the MC-13, which is the citizenship alien form, and then we put down through call, and with that they were able to get full scope. But is that true now as well, if they claim through call?
Hi, Jagmeet. Yes, Pru-Call is an exception on both that UIS, the unsatisfactory immigration status, as well as that October 1st QNC, qualified non-citizen change.
Okay, great. That's good to hear. Thank you.
Thank you for your question. We have time for one more question before we move on. And feel free to also type in your question in the Q&A.
Are you able to explain who qualifies for Pru-Call?
Off the top of my head, no, but I can share a helpful resource after this meeting. Sorry.
Kimia, there is one general question in the Q&A. It seems like the criteria for who falls under the UIS are complex. Do you have any advice on how to quickly figure out whether clients may be at risk of this?
Quick and Medi-Cal are usually not two words that go together. But I think if one of your clients is an immigrant, I think this is the time to call their caseworker at social services or call the general social services agency phone number to check if your client is in the UIS group. This will not put them at risk at all for losing their Medi-Cal. So I highly recommend calling with the source of truth is the social services agency.
Okay, Kimia, thank you. I'm going to go ahead and have us pivot to
I'm
our
sorry,
next presenter.
could I ask a quick question? Sorry, about the QNC change. I was wondering if people are going to then lose their Medi-Cal or if they're going to be able to continue receiving Medi-Cal after that. I don't know if I understand that correctly.
With the QNC change, people who are in that group will no longer be eligible for full scope or emergency Medi-Cal.
So if they currently have it, will they lose it come that date?
Yeah.
Okay.
That's one of the more extreme policies that have been brought down.
Okay, thank you.
Please go ahead and keep your questions coming, but I'm going to have us ask the questions in the Q&A now, and I'm going to invite Monica, who is our next presenter, to, okay, Monica Rosado, thank you so much for your patience.
Hello, good morning, everybody. I'm Monica Rosado. I'm a health insurance technician with Alameda County. We help clients apply and renew their services. We work with Medi-Cal and other programs. So I'm going to go over what we do a little bit and then get into how you can actually assist clients with the process. Okay, so we're going to talk about navigating the Medi-Cal application. And we'll start off with our own health insurance enrollment unit. So we actually are 8 health insurance technicians. We're housed at Alameda County Health, Office of the Agency Director. So we do focus on the client and we do serve the whole family. So it doesn't matter if they're mixed status, we're going to screen every person individually to see what we can get them enrolled into. So we provide Alameda County residents with information, with screening, referrals, and application assistance. This could be in person or over the phone. And we can help with Medi-Cal, Covered California, Health Pack, Kaiser Community Health Coverage Program, or CalFresh. But today we're going to focus on Medi-Cal. So you can find us at different locations. Our office is in San Leandro, but we're also at Oakland Unified, Hayward Unified, San Leandro Unified, and Street Level Health Project in Oakland. So we're in different parts of the county trying to assist as many families as possible. And this information will be shared. So we're going to focus today on Medi-Cal. And Kimia already covered a lot of this, so this is just a quick reminder that Medi-Cal is California's Medicaid program. So this is public health insurance that provides free health care to low-income families, which means children, adults, seniors, people with disabilities, foster care youth, and pregnant women. There are two types of services available. So one is the restricted limited scope, which a lot of people will call pregnancy only or emergency only. And then we have the full scope that is going to cover the rest of the healthcare. So preventive, routine, specialized. They also cover substance use, dental and vision care, and long-term care. So there's actually many different Medi-Cal programs that are dependent upon income, household size, age, assets, circumstances. And today we're going to talk about the type of Medi-Cal that's called MAGI, which is modified adjusted gross income. And this focuses on income and household composition to determine eligibility. Enrollment is year-round for Medi-Cal, and it can be completed online, through the mail, over the phone, or in person. Eligibility must be determined within 45 days. The coverage starts the same month that the application is received. And currently, they can still get up to 3 months retroactive coverage, and they have to renew every year as rules are right now. Okay, so we'll talk about how you can screen your clients for Medi-Cal. So we'll talk about family size, immigration status, monthly income, and income guidelines. So family size. So you first have to establish the correct family size because not everyone in the house may be counted as part of the family. So Medi-Cal is going to look at your applicant, the spouse or domestic partner, and dependent children, ages 21 or younger that reside in the same house. So we're looking at tax filing status. So if they are tax filers, then it's pretty easy because you're talking about the tax filers and their dependents. But if they're not tax filers, then we're looking at the applicant, their spouse, a registered domestic partner, or domestic partner that is a parent of a mutual minor child, age 21 or younger. And if anyone is pregnant, unborn babies actually get added into that family size count. So some questions you can ask your family to determine who is in the family, in the household, and who's going to be counted. You want to ask, what is their marital status? And when people tell me they're married, I always have to ask, is it legally married? because a lot of people will talk about their husband or their wife, but they're not legally married. And that makes a difference in the way Medi-Cal looks at things. And I'll also ask if the spouse is in their home, because we deal with a lot of immigrant families. Sometimes their spouse is still in their home country. So I always have to ask if the spouse is in the home. We'll ask about other adults in the home and what is their relationship to you. Because again, like I mentioned, a boyfriend or girlfriend may not be counted necessarily if they're not the parent of one of the children in the home. We'll ask about dependent children, ages 21 and younger, and their ages and relationship, and if anybody is pregnant. Okay, so after establishing family size, then we do ask about immigration status, and satisfactory immigration status must be verified to receive the correct eligibility aid code. And you guys don't see aid codes when you're applying or when you're assisting clients, but we do on the back end, and having that correct aid code is what's going to impact future benefits. So upcoming changes were already reviewed, but just as a reminder that people with unsatisfactory immigration status will see termination of adult benefits, dental benefits in July 2026. So emergency dental care for severe pain, infection, and necessary tooth extraction will still be available, and children and pregnant women will not be affected regardless of immigration status. And then in October 2026, again, the federal government will change how it classifies some immigration statuses impacting eligibility. So again, if they do have some kind of immigration status, they should report it. They should get the caseworker to update their cases so that they have the right aid code. So for this, I will ask clients, are any of you or your family members a U.S. citizen, a legal permanent resident? Do you have a work permit or a visa? And it's fine if you don't have anything yet. Okay, then we get into monthly income. So there's different income limits for adults that are considered ages 19 and over, and children that's considered 18 and younger. And that results in possible eligibility for some family members and not others. And it's very common that we see parents in Covered California or Health Pack and children in Medi-Cal because they have different eligibility. So social services will question how the family is supporting themselves, how they are meeting their basic needs. And all money received by any family member should be reported, even if it's paid in cash, even if they're paid occasionally. So you want to collect last month's gross income information from all family members. If they're paid by check, you must have the pay stubs. And if they're paid in cash, they will need to write an income statement. So you're going to calculate average gross income for each family member as a monthly amount, even if they're paid occasionally, daily, weekly, biweekly, or annual. So some questions to ask your families here would be, how does your family financially support themselves? Are they paid by check or cash? And you'll want to ask them to gather last month's pay stub so you can check if the family's eligible for Medi-Cal. If they do claim to make cash income, then you have to help them sometimes figure out how much they're making. So you'll ask them to estimate how much they make in a month, or sometimes you have to ask how many days per week do you usually work and how much are you paid each day that you work. So some families have never thought about these questions until this comes up, until they're applying for programs like this, and then they have to figure out these numbers. So you might have to help them think it through a bit. So continuing how to calculate, you do have to do a little bit of math here to see if your families qualify. If they're paid by check, you're going to add up the gross amount of all the pay stubs, divide by the number of pay stubs, and if paid weekly, multiply by 4.33. If paid twice per month, and people always say, I'm paid biweekly, or in Spanish, they say por quincena, every 15 days. And you really have to figure out, are they talking about twice per month or are they talking about biweekly? So twice per month is every 5th and 20th, no matter what. That is twice per month, whereas biweekly is they get paid one Friday and one Friday they don't. So they have different formulas for calculating. Biweekly would be 2.167. And if they paid monthly, well, that one is pretty easy. If it's with the taxes, then you'll divide it by 12 to get a monthly amount. If paid in cash, you may need to estimate the income. You have to use one amount when you're doing your application. You can't put in a range. People will say, well, I make anywhere from 500 to 1,000. And we can't put in a range like that. So we'll have to average it to 750. And as I mentioned, if they're self-employed, then you're going to use last year's 1040. You're going to find the adjusted gross income, and you can divide that amount by 12 for a monthly amount. And this is actually the new income chart put out by Covered California. So these numbers are what we're using right now to calculate eligibility. The chart is a little complicated because it looks at both Medi-Cal and Covered California eligibility. But if you look down below, you could see there's a section for Medi-Cal for adults, Medi-Cal for pregnant individuals. Then there's also Medi-Cal Access Program that is also a program for women who are above the Medi-Cal guidelines but still qualify for help. And then below that, you'll see Medi-Cal for kids is 0 to 18. So whereas Medi-Cal for adults only goes up to 138% of the federal poverty level, Medi-Cal for kids goes up to 266%. And that's why I mentioned that you'll see a lot more kids eligible, whereas their parents may not be. And they can apply for Covered California in that case if they have satisfactory immigration status. Okay, so once you know that someone looks like they are going to qualify, then you should gather the correct verification documents, which will be proof of identity, proof of Alameda County residency, proof of income. We'll go over how to write statements and renewals. So proof of identity is required for all the adults, and you could turn in a California ID, a matricula, a consular ID. You can turn in a foreign ID, passport, etc. There's many things that are allowed. You want something that has your applicant's picture, name, and date of birth. If they're claiming to have satisfactory immigration status, then you're going to want to provide proof of that. It could be a U.S. passport, a legal permanent resident card, an employment authorization card, an I-94, etc. Again, there's many different things you could turn in. If they're minors, you must turn in a birth certificate. And that birth certificate could be from the United States, or it could be a foreign birth certificate. So that's also used to establish relationships. So it must be a birth certificate. You must provide the Social Security card for anyone who has one or the receipt that they have applied for one. And if anyone is pregnant, you will want to provide the verification of pregnancy from the doctor. You can provide Alameda County residency. So one thing that does happen is when they're verifying someone's eligibility, they make sure they're not receiving services in another county. So usually they will also ask for a proof of address to show they are a county resident. This should show a recent date, name, and address. It could be verified through their pay stub, a utility bill, current car insurance, and it also could just be their California ID. If they don't have any verification in their name, they could also provide a current utility bill in a roommate's name and a handwritten statement from that person that they do live there. And if they can't get any of the above, they can also self-attest that, yes, they are an Alameda County resident living at such address since such and such date. So proof of income is very important. So this one, you want to provide 1 month of income for each person who works dated within the last 45 days. So if they're paid weekly, you need 4 pay stubs. If you're paid semi-monthly or biweekly, at least 2 pay stubs. And if paid monthly, you have to provide at least 1 verification. So something that is always an issue, people want to turn in their bank statements because they get direct deposit. And I always have to explain bank deposits do not show gross income. So your bank deposit is going to be your net income. So they must obtain the pay stubs to see the gross amount, to see what kind of deductions were taken out from that. So possible documents to verify income could be pay stubs, last year's taxes, an award letter, a child or alimony support statement. It could be a letter from the employer, a friend or family support letter, a 3-month profit and loss statement, or self-attestation, etc. Again, there's so many different possible ways to verify income. If they claim to have no income, they must make a sworn statement explaining how they are meeting their basic needs. So written statements should be handwritten, preferably in English or Spanish. It is important to check the format of their date because in other countries, they tend to put the day first and then the month, and we use a different format, and that could be quite confusing for the worker. So please check the way the date is written. You'll want to include the applicant's contact information, address, and phone number, and go straight to the point. I've seen 2-3 page letters for income, and honestly, the workers don't want to read that much just to find out how much they make. So if it's about income, you must include the type of work, the amount they earn, and the frequency of pay. If there's no income, then how do they get food, shelter, and utilities? And this must be signed. If the statement is from an employer, it should be on company letterhead. And here's an example of a very simple, straight to the point letter. It has the date. I, Maria Smith, hereby swear that I live at 1000 San Leandro Boulevard, San Leandro, California, 94577. I work part-time cleaning houses. I earn $300 every week, and I am paid in cash. If you have any questions, I can be reached at a phone number and signed. It could be that simple, that straight to the point. And it is important to mention it is in cash because, again, the workers preferably are looking for pay stubs. And if there's not going to be a pay stub, make it clear that this is paid in cash. Okay, so current renewal protocols. So renewals right now are still being done yearly, and they will be due every 6 months starting in January. Renewal packets are mailed out 60 days before the case renewal date. So they're sent out with plenty of time. Even if the case terminates for non-renewal, the renewal packet can still be submitted within 90 days to be reinstated. So they do have a 3-month grace period to turn it in. These forms are personalized county forms that must be used. So there are no blank ones you can pick up or download. You must request a copy at social services if you no longer have that packet, or also log in online to see it on Benefits Cal. The preferred methods of turning in the renewal packet is going to be to upload it online at Benefits Cal or submit in person at any social services office. And usually it just consists of them going to the office and scanning it in the kiosk. They don't have to stand in line forever to talk to a worker. They must attach a current proof of income, even if there are no changes. That is very important. And submit verification of any other change that is being reported. So a lot of people will say, I turned it in, but I got denied. And I have to ask, did you turn in your proof of income? And they'll say, no, because nothing changed. Well, you still need to provide proof of income, even if there are no changes. Okay, so now we'll go over some application assistance tips on how to apply Benefits Cal, authorized representatives, and checking Medi-Cal status. So there are different ways that you can help people apply. So online, our preferred method is doing it through benefitscal.com. You could use coveredcalifornia.com as well, but Benefits Cal is much easier to navigate. It's very user-friendly, and clients can make their own account and get case status updates, upload paperwork. It's a pretty good system. They can also apply over the phone by calling social services, calling Covered California, or calling our program. They can apply in person with us, or they can go to a social services office, although there's limited availability for getting help in person. They can also apply by mail for both Medi-Cal and Covered California with one streamlined form that can be downloaded on Covered California, and then they would mail that in. So this is what Benefits Cal looks like. Like I said, this is our preferred method of submitting applications. It's easy to use. You can get lots of information on your case, upload forms instead of having to go into social services. So I highly suggest that you help clients make an account. So if you want to become an authorized representative to access the client's application status to receive correspondence, then you will need to download, fill out the MC 382, which is for individuals, or the MC 383 is for organizations. And the client will have to agree to you doing that for them. And if you're not listed as an authorized rep, then you just need to have your client be present if you call or go into the office and have them agree that you can get information on their behalf. So people always ask, how do I check my Medi-Cal status? And the best way, again, is going to be by setting up a benefits Cal account. They could also call social services, but I'm sure many of you know it's very difficult to get through the phone line. And if you call with your client, again, they'll ask if you're the authorized rep or if they are there with you. You will need the client social security number, client index number, the SIN, or some way to find them in the system. So name, date of birth, they'll need to find out, get some information from you, case number, something to identify them when you guys call in to get a status update. Okay, and we are done here. So you can contact us at our 1-800 number. We're open Monday through Friday, 8:30 to 5. We also have an email address. We do not do drop-ins. So even though we are putting our location here, we don't take drop-ins because we go through the screening process first to actually see what they need help with, what they're eligible for, and we go over the documentation process to make sure we have all documents before we start our process. So we always want to submit a complete application. So if any of you want to refer clients over to us, then you can email us, but please just send one family per email. Include the preferred language. We do have bilingual services, and we are able to get language assistance if it's a language that someone on the team does not speak. In the email, please put the full name of the contact person, the phone number, service they need help with, and encourage clients to answer their calls, have voicemail set up, and listen to their messages. And again, this information will be shared after the presentation.
Thank you, Monica. I appreciate all of this. It's really great information, and I wanted to go ahead and just, people have been really actively using the Q&A, which is wonderful. And if there is another kind of general question right now from Monica, feel free to unmute yourself and you can ask Monica.
I was actually wondering whether we could go back to the authorized representative slide for a second, just because I was curious about whether or not any mental health professionals working with clients be able to apply to become an authorized representative for them.
Yeah, so yeah, you could definitely, anyone could be an authorized representative. So mental health professional, case manager, nurse advocate. I mean, anybody who is willing to be the authorized rep and the client agrees to it has that availability. There's no exception of who it could be.
I do see one person's hand raised. Stefai Drago, if you wanted to come off mute.
Hi, yeah, sorry, my name's Stephanie. I wrote it wrong on there. My question, I had two questions. When it comes to the authorized rep, is it okay if we just put our organization, or do we have to have a specific name of a staff member?
So yeah, there should be a specific person as the contact person. And so if that's, it could still be the organization, but if there's one person who's going to receive correspondence, and that's when you have that one contact person. And if they leave, then you should update it with who the new person will be, but an organization can be listed.
Sorry, you said an organization can be listed?
Yes.
Okay. And then my other question is when the person says that they don't have any income, I know you said like they can write a letter about like how are they surviving basically.
Yes.
If they say like, oh yeah, my brother lets us live there, like does that mean that the county will ask for the brother's income or
No. No, that's a good question. Thank you. They will not ask for the brother's income. They will ask, how is this family living? And so in that case, you would write the letter saying the brother supports them with free rent, utilities, and food. And you don't even have to give his phone number really. You say, if you have any questions, you can call me at blah blah blah. And I've never had a problem with that. I've never had the brother verified. Occasionally you will have a worker that will say, okay, well, have your brother write the letter. And in that case, the brother would say, I support the family, my sister and her children. I provide free rent, utilities, and food for them. And here is my phone number. But I've never heard of him actually getting verified and asking for income information unless it's CalFresh. So if it's CalFresh and he's the one saying he supports them, then they will ask for his information.
Okay, thank you for that clarification.
Great question. Okay, next hand I see is Marta.
Oh, yes. My question, Monica, you said that you have different sites in the community for the health insurance enrollment units. Do we have to call or should the family call to make an appointment or is it drop-in?
I believe all of the sites work on in appointments right now because they don't want too many people, everything changed with COVID. So they don't want
Sure,
too many people hanging out in the waiting rooms.
sure.
And also they want to go over documentation with them. So we always want to make sure that they bring in the right paperwork so that we can assist them. So yes,
Okay,
please encourage them to call and set up their appointment first.
okay. Thank you.
And then we will take one more question. And again, feel free to use the Q&A. But this last question we will for Alondra.
Yes. Yes, thank you for the information. I was wondering, kind of related to the example that you gave, where like there's this brother who's taking care of the family. If the family were to apply for both Medi-Cal and CalFresh at the same time, in that case, will it be necessary to like provide all the household information? Or would you recommend that a household submit a separate application for Medi-Cal and then a follow-up CalFresh one that has everybody's info on it?
We typically do the applications together because when you are doing an application on Benefits Cal, it's just very easy to include both programs and do it all at once instead of doing two separate applications. Um, and in that case, so the question is going to be, and this is where it gets tricky. The question is going to be, do they buy and cook together? So that is a big question for eligibility workers, and that will determine if the brother's income information gets counted or not. So if they are buying food together, cooking together, eating together, then they will request his information, even if it's after the application is done and you didn't include him, they will come back and ask for his information. But if he's just giving her money to buy food for her children and she cooks separately, then they won't ask for his information. So that's a little tip for you.
Yeah, that's really interesting. Thank you so much for answering my question.
Sure.
Monica, thank you again for this, and thank you for these great questions. Please continue to use the Q&A function as well if you think of a question that wasn't yet addressed. And then I'd like to invite our next speaker, Carlos.
So hello, everybody. My name is Carlos Alarcón. I am with the California Immigrant Policy Center. A little bit about CIPC. We are one of the leading immigrant rights organizations in the state of California. We focus on really transforming systems and passing policies to really push the boundaries of what a state like California can do to protect our immigrant communities. We focus on economic justice policy, detention and deportation policy, and health and public benefits policy. I am a health policy manager, but when I made this slide, I was a health policy analyst. So shout out to getting promoted. Yay, we are here. And I am going to be making this presentation about how we are trying to fight back against some of the changes that the other wonderful presenters have presented on, and trying to restore and protect our immigrant community's access to Medi-Cal. And I just want to mention around how we got here. So around the passage of the Affordable Care Act, a couple of nonprofits here in California really centered around the immigrant exclusions of the ACA. And really began strategizing on how we can eliminate immigration status as a barrier to healthcare in California. So that was the start of our Health for All campaign. CIPC, we are one of the co-chairs of the statewide Health for All campaign. And over the past decade, we've grown the campaign to over 120, 150-ish organizations up and down the state of California. And we're a wonderfully diverse coalition. It's not just immigrant rights advocates, it's not just health advocates, it's also community health workers, doctors, nurses, students, teachers, directly impacted individuals, labor unions. So we're able to really pressure legislators and provide every different perspective that they need in order to see that expanding Medi-Cal is actually good for our people and our state as a whole. And throughout the history of the Health for All Coalition, this year we are turning 13 years old, so our coalition is a teenager, and teenagers get very rebellious, and so we are in a rebellious time of our coalition as we're seeing that from the state imposing these cuts, but we are the coalition that was able to expand Medi-Cal to kids ages 0 to 18 in 2016, young adults 19 to 25 in 2020, older adults 50 and up in 2022, and we were able to get that final age group, the 26 to 49-year-olds, covered through Medi-Cal in 2024. And just to be clear, this is the expansions to having undocumented Californians covered by Medi-Cal. However, as my other presenters mentioned, that access is being attacked, that progress is being attacked, right? I'm not going to go too much into detail because I think the other presenters did an amazing job kind of breaking down the changes, but just providing a brief overview of what was already shared. For the state changes, we have the enrollment freeze for undocumented Californians ages 19 and up, the elimination of full scope dental for UIS individuals ages 19 and up, and the $30 monthly premium for UIS individuals ages 19 to 59. Right, and I just wanted to make that distinction, right, that the enrollment freeze is for undocumented individuals. However, we are seeing some counties imposing the enrollment freeze on individuals who fall under the UIS category but are not undocumented. We've had stories of individuals who fall in the UIS category, and when they receive their Medi-Cal renewal packet, they receive a letter saying that they only qualify for emergency Medi-Cal now instead of full scope benefits, right? And that's what we're seeing is counties improperly applying that policy. And so We've raised this concern with Department of Healthcare Services and with our legislators to make sure we get this policy properly implemented, to make sure that folks who shouldn't be subject to the enrollment freeze are not subject to the enrollment freeze based under California law, based on the policy change that occurred last year. We have had some community health workers and promotoras tell us that some of the folks that they are helping are not undocumented. They are an immigrant, but they're not undocumented. And they got a letter saying that they're getting kicked off of full scope Medi-Cal, and we're telling them to submit an appeal with the county to make sure folks who don't need to be subject to this cut are subject to it, right? Let's see here, next slide. The federal changes, again, these were already covered. More immigrants will become ineligible for federally funded Medi-Cal. This was the QNC change, the qualified non-immigrant change, right? After this change in October 2026, we're going to see around 200,000 undocumented Californians. This includes the refugees, asylees, survivors of domestic violence, survivors of torture, and many more, losing access to their full scope benefits as things stand right now, right? We still have some time to push back on this policy. Right now, the change of these individuals getting kicked off of full scope benefits, it's still just a proposal. We are trying to push the state of California to use state-only funds to cover their full scope benefits and not switch these people to emergency-only Medi-Cal. But I'll be talking about that in a little bit. Additionally, the Medi-Cal redeterminations happening every 6 months. Again, this was already mentioned, and the work requirements for Medi-Cal recipients ages 19 and 64. Those were also discussed earlier, and I just want to make a clarification here. The 2 points, the redeterminations every 6 months and the work requirements, according to HR1, these are going to be implemented for individuals who are part of the ACA expansion population and who are receiving federally funded Medi-Cal, right? That's important because undocumented Californians, they receive Medi-Cal through state-only funds, right? So this is part of the nuance of these policies, and this is where we're trying to play around with what is being said versus what California is trying to do to make sure that we keep and protect Medi-Cal coverage, full scope benefits for as many people as possible. And again, I'll be talking about some of those nuances in a couple of slides. But this was just an overview of the changes that were made by the state of California and the federal government, again, that my fellow presenters already touched upon earlier. But I also wanted to break down some of the data sharing that happened between the Centers for Medicaid and Medicare Services and the Department of Homeland Security, right? So what we know is that, and I'm sure maybe this is already reviewed for some of y'all, but just in case some of you need a little refresher, the California Department of Healthcare Services is legally required to share Medi-Cal enrollee data with the federal CMS. And this is to administer the program. This is to make sure that the state of California is being reimbursed for those folks who qualify for federally funded Medicaid. And this data has never once been used for any other purpose besides administering the Medicaid and Medicare programs. Now, here comes the but. But last year, it was reported that Department of Healthcare Services requested this data from the Centers for Medicare and Medicaid Services for all individuals enrolled in Medi-Cal in certain states, including California. This data included addresses, phone numbers, date of birth, social security numbers, treatment and provider information, and broad immigration status. A court did block that data transfer. However, they did not say that the data transfer was illegal. They said that the way that DHCS went about getting that data was illegal. And the federal government then released a notice that it is taking the proper steps to share that data. So basically saying to the court, okay, we hear you, we're taking the proper steps to get that data. And from what we know now, that data was shared and is able to be shared. Now, as I'm sure y'all know, for the folks that y'all help enroll in Medi-Cal, this is a big fear. Rightfully so, right? I have family members who were very scared when this came out, and I had to be very real with them. And our coalition created resources, again, telling people the facts of what happened and providing them the information that they need to make an adequate choice for themselves based on their healthcare situation, right? So one of the things that we let folks know is that canceling or disenrolling from Medi-Cal will not erase their data that was shared, right? That's not how databases work. The data was shared already. If ICE already has the applicant's address, like from a previous immigration case, if they have submitted an immigration case through USCIS, the online portal, then there may be no additional risk in applying and receiving Medi-Cal benefits, right? There's no need to provide social security numbers or immigration status of non-applicant family members. Again, something that my previous presenters have already mentioned. Additionally, we're asking counties to update case to list a zip code, intersection, or neighborhood or county office as a resident address, and telling folks to always make sure that their mailing address is accurate, right? I am more than happy to share the resource that we created. It's an FAQ document kind of breaking down the lawsuit and again, explaining these things more in detail. It is meant for community members themselves, but community health workers have said that it's been a valuable resource in the outreach work that they've done. Additionally, there have been some updates, or there are currently some updates brewing around public charge. And to make sure that I share with y'all the accurate information, I'm going to read just from this slide. So on November 19th, 2025, the Department of Homeland Security published a proposed rulemaking proposing to change the current public charge ground of inadmissibility rule. These changes have not taken effect yet. However, it's showing us that the federal administration is planning some changes to public charge. And again, public charge does not impact all immigrants, right? It primarily applies to people seeking a green card, through a family member. And many immigrants are exempt from the public charge test when they apply for those statuses or when they adjust to a green card from those statuses. Additionally, some immigrants, they're not planning long term to adjust their status and stay here, right? Some folks are only coming, hoping to make just enough money to send back home or just enough money to retire back in their home country, right? So if an individual isn't planning to adjust their status, the public charge test might be something that they don't have to worry about, right? We did add here that people who are currently pursuing a family-based petition should speak with their immigration attorney. CIPC, we are working with our national legal partners to make sure that we provide resources and updates that are as accurate as possible whenever those changes do come out. So I wanted to add a slide here, right? After all of this, why someone may still consider applying for Medi-Cal, right? And the truth is that it's up to the individual's healthcare situation, right? Who am I to tell somebody that they should apply for Medi-Cal if they're scared of their data being shared, right? But also, who am I to tell somebody not to apply for Medi-Cal who needs that emergency Medi-Cal or needs to continue getting that full scope coverage to get the preventative care, right? So we're just letting folks know that whatever decision they make, it is up to them based on their own healthcare situation, right? And we're just here to provide information and resources to help them make that decision. And I put this little timeline. It doesn't reflect all of the changes. However, this line in blue is the timeline that CIPC is working with. Again, CIPC, we're a policy organization. So what our focus is how can we change policy? How can we fight back against these changes to make sure our communities are able to access the benefits that they need, qualify for, and that they're paying for through their taxes, right? So this blue line is the timeline that we're focusing on for our advocacy. Okay, right now we are trying to pass policies in the state legislature, identify champions in the legislature. We are organizing our coalition members, collecting stories for directly impacted individuals to meet with legislators and let them know that they should not balance our state's budget on the back of our immigrant communities, right? I will say this is not a lobbying presentation. This is an informational presentation. I'm sharing this information just so you all know um, what we're trying to do here. The information that I am presenting does not reflect the views of some of my other presenters maybe, but this reflects the views of CIPC. And if y'all are interested in joining the work that we're trying to do as individuals, please feel free to reach out to me, okay? But what exactly are we trying to do? Right? So our coalition's priorities is focusing on both the defensive side and the offensive side. Okay, on the defensive side, we are ensuring that no more cuts are happening to Medi-Cal eligibility or scope of benefits for immigrant Californians, right? What we're telling legislators is that, hey, last year's budget cuts were devastating enough. Do not think about cutting any more of our access to Medi-Cal. And the incoming federal cuts are also going to impact our communities drastically if the state of California chooses to impose those changes on immigrant Californians. Excuse me. So that is our baseline, what we're trying to achieve, no additional cuts. On the offensive side, we are trying to roll back the 2025 Medi-Cal cuts. Okay, thankfully, we were able to identify legislative champions to push a bill through the legislature, SB 1422, that will undo the Medi-Cal enrollment freeze next year, right? We were scared that members would not want to champion such an ambitious bill, but once we were able to introduce it, we've had 19 co-authors in both the Senate and the Assembly who are putting their name on this bill and are trying to push for this bill as well. Additionally, this is a Bay Area, Alameda County type of presentation. So I also want to shout out Assembly member Mia Banta, who is also one of our champions for our coalition this year, who is pushing a budgetary proposal through the Assembly for $5 billion for the full rollback of the 2025 Medi-Cal cuts. And this $5 billion also includes funding to protect the full scope Medi-Cal benefits access for those qualified non-citizens that are impacted by HR 1, right? The proper term is QNC, qualified non-citizen, but we are referring to them as those humanitarian immigrants, right? Additionally, what we're also trying to achieve is to reduce the harms of the HR 1, the federal changes, by advocating against the governor's proposal to impose the work requirements and the 6-month redeterminations to immigrant Californians. Right? As I mentioned before, the federal changes, they were very clear that they are for individuals in the ACA expansion population who are receiving Medi-Cal through federal funds. The reason why our coalition began is because undocumented Californians were excluded from that ACA expansion population and do not receive Medi-Cal from federal funds. They receive it through state-only funds. So we're also trying to make sure that these harmful policies are not implemented on folks that shouldn't have been legally, that the state of California isn't legally required to implement them on. This is ambitious. Some said that expanding Medi-Cal to undocumented Californians was ambitious and we were able to achieve it, right? So we want to make sure that we're equally as ambitious this time around to protect our immigrant communities, right? Community health workers do a lot of amazing work. However, not every Medi-Cal individual has the privilege of being connected with a promotora community health worker, and some of them have to navigate this complicated system alone, right, with their county and enroller. So hoping that some of these changes, if we're able to implement them, make the system also just more easier to navigate for our immigrant Californians. And if folks are interested in joining the fight that we're doing here at CIPC and through our Health for All Coalition, again, as individuals, not as part of your organization. If your organization is interested, maybe we can have a conversation outside of this call. But if folks are interested or want to get in touch with me about any of the resources that I've discussed, here is my email. And yeah, thank you all so much for having me. Thank you all so much for listening. And thank you all so much for being in this fight with us.
Carlos Alarcón, thank you so much for this. Always really inspiring to hear the work that's been done and what you continue to do, especially after such very heavy news and information and update from our previous presenters. I'd like to welcome kind of another inspirational speaker, Grecia Vidal Zavala.
Okay, so as mentioned, behavioral health clinician working in primary care. I work with families navigating a lot of these changes, right? And a lot of us are more in the front lines, right? In daycares, preschools, community spaces. So big changes to Medi-Cal. You know, some important things to note is that a lot of kids are still protected no matter what their immigration status is. However, a lot of them without satisfactory immigration status can't apply for coverage anymore. So we're going to notice like some things here, right? We are going to notice, right? Parent who's suddenly stressed, kids that may be clingy or acting out, family stops going to programs, parents starts mentioning insurance programs, right? They're not insurance problems, right? These things aren't random, right? Because coverage loss can create a lot of like family trauma, right? A lot of parents have, you know, their own mental health or medical struggles. So it's going to show up in behavior. It's going to show up in stress. Our job isn't to fix it. It's just to notice it and know what to do next, right? So some of the signs, right? If a parent mentions insurance, right, that's your cue. If a child suddenly becomes very clingy, you can ask, you know, is something happening at home? When a family stops showing up, right? Reach out because they're all connected, right? Coverage loss, again, it creates stress and stress shows up in behavior. Our job is to notice and respond with compassion. So again, like some signs, there's a lot of family isolation in this as well and becoming just less engaged with the community. So things we can say, right? You don't need fancy clinical language. You just need to notice and ask, right? Have there been changes to your insurance that can open the door? Or are there any recent stressors that have been coming up for the family, right? If you are worried about affording care or, you know, any insurance problems, like there are people that can help. That usually signals that, you know, we're a safe person, right? We're not diagnosing, we're not fixing, we're just noticing and connecting. I also want to note, right, that if you yourself are saying like, I can help connect them to resources, right? Like that is entirely the family's choice. Each family has autonomy over themselves and over what they need. So, you know, before giving something out, ask them if that's something that they would like to have. So a warm handoff toolkit, right? Very brief, 4 steps. Listen, right? If a parent is mentioning insurance coverage, any financial stress, or any other stress, right? We can validate that sounds really hard or that's really challenging. And I know someone that can help. Can I give you their phone number or their contact information? The asking, the can I give you? Now you are giving them autonomy to either say, yes, you can, or no, not right now. And then if they agree to that, you can check in the next time you see them, right? You can say, like, were you able to connect with so and so? Do you need support in connecting? A lot of the families that I work with here, like have a really hard time calling HSA on the phone or going over to their office. So I always offer, like, I'm more than happy to call them for you, or we can call them together if that's something that you feel would help in connecting you to XYZ. And again, like some resources that I think have been mentioned. But yeah, like I really want to highlight back here that you're not a benefits counselor, right? We're just bridges. We listen and we validate and we give a direct number or a specific contact person, and then we follow up, right? That's it. And that creates that safety net. And ultimately, like, that's what really matters. So that's it on my end. Yeah, I just really want to highlight that for people.
Gracia, thank you. I think that there's something so actually empowering about what you just shared with all of us. There is no fixing here. There is no this is a very, very, very difficult, challenging time for everyone involved in their very different places, and most of all for the person that it is impacting the most, which is our families. And so for us to just notice and find opportunities to connect, as I recently heard from a colleague, the revolution is going to be in relationships. So this is wonderful, and I wanted to invite in these last moments, if people have questions for any of our speakers, people have been utilizing the Q&A wonderfully, and I would like to offer folks to go ahead and use these last 10 minutes of our time together to ask any other questions. I'm hearing somebody off mute, so I'm going to go ahead and stay quiet so they can ask their question. Maybe that was a mistake. You can use the raise hand feature. Hi, Marta. I see your hand.
Yes, hi, Griselda. I have a question for Grecia. Grecia, you mentioned HSA in your presentation. Can you tell me what that acronym is for?
Oh, yeah, that's just a health and health services agency. So I think we all have them where, like, people are connected to Medi-Cal, CalFresh, things like that. I work in San Francisco, so it's called the SFHSA.
Oh, social services agency, like
Yeah.
the Medi-Cal, CalFresh offices?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Stephanie, I see your hand. Go right ahead.
I kind of came late to the presentation, but did you guys talk about Health Pack?
Kimmy, I'm gonna.
Hi, Stephanie.
Okay.
Yeah, I can answer it. We did not talk about Health Pack, although I will say that Health Pack is available as an option for adults 18 and over who don't qualify for Medi-Cal because the income limit is too high for Medi-Cal. So whereas Medi-Cal goes up to 138, Health Pack goes up to 200% of the federal poverty level, and it is specifically for folks in Alameda County who don't have access to Medi-Cal or Covered California because of their immigration status. And Health Pack is not insurance. It is a program that Alameda County offers for people to have some kind of access when there's no other access available. So thank you for mentioning Health Pack.
Yes, and I think they had updated their brochures and pamphlets recently. Not sure what are all the differences, but I know they did update that.
Yeah, I think that was mostly some clinics have changed their names. So the network had to be updated because of name changes, but there's no changes to eligibility at this point. Everything remains the same.
Okay, perfect. And then I just wanted to mention one more thing. I know Kaiser Permanente has a program for folks who don't qualify for any type of insurance. I'm not sure if you guys, I know they're a private hospital, but I think it might be worth it to look into their community health program where folks who don't qualify for Medi-Cal or Covered California or things like that are able to get coverage through them. I can't remember all the qualifications, but there is something there that could help folks as well.
Yeah, we are listed also as assisters for that program. We do help with the Kaiser program. The tricky part with that one is that they work on the same open enrollment schedule as Covered California. So they have open enrollment, special enrollment. It is for people above the Medi-Cal limit who also don't have access to anything. So we are looking at the undocumented population, and income limits go up to 300% for this one. However, because so many people were losing Medi-Cal, they are now closed. So they're not accepting any more applications in either Northern California or Southern California. And to be able to offer the program to more people, they actually have a 3-year lifetime limit now. And that was something new they just implemented. So once you get in, you can only have it for 3 years.
Thank you for that update. I wasn't aware that they had closed or they were not accepting, and I did not know about that update about the 3 years. So that's helpful. Thank you.
Sure.
Anyone else have a question?
I was hoping to answer a question from the Q&A. I will type an answer as well. So Angelica asked, where can people go in person or call to obtain information and support on their Medi-Cal renewal or status? Do we have a direct phone numbers we can share? So there's several social services agency offices that they do walk-in appointments. So you can, clients can go there. There can be long wait times. So I just want to flag that. And then there's a phone number to call, but as Monica stated, they can have a really long hold time. My tip or trick is to call right at 7:30 in the morning. If you start typing the number in at 7:29 a.m., you can usually skip a really long wait time. But otherwise, it could be, I've been on hold for 3 hours before. So those are some options.
I appreciate the tips. Any other questions? Okay. I hope people have been able to access the information that has been sent out by Mark and his team. These links and websites, the various charts and information that was shared earlier. And so if anybody has any other questions, feel free to try to reach any one of us to get that answered. And I just want to thank you all for your attendance today. And thank you again to our wonderful panel of presenters.
Thank you, Griselda, for facilitating the Q&A. And just before we close, I just want to briefly mention and piggyback on Carlos's presentation. Thank you, Carlos, for that wonderful presentation along with our presenters. But I just want to briefly mention on behalf of First Five that as a publicly funded organization, we are not advocating on any specific action. And so to, mention that Carlos had lifted up that it is not a lobbying effort, it's sharing information with the public. So just want to briefly mention that. And want to take this moment to really recognize all the efforts and coordination in providing this really, really informative presentation for our community. I really want to thank Griselda and Ara for this partnership and bringing forth this presentation. Mark Johnson and his team, and Kimia and the HIT team, and all the folks that supported with answering and addressing the questions in the Q&A at Alameda County Health. And also want to shout out to all of you folks for all the work that you do in service to community. We all can't do this without everyone's help on this. And so really want to thank you all for being here today. And I wish you all the best. And I hope to see you in our next training session. Thank you again. Have a nice day.